Should police get more powers to tackle protests? 0207 862 2222 is the number. The Home Office has said it will give officers more powers to target repeated protests aimed particularly at cracking down on demonstrations connected to Gaza. The Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood said this was not about banning but about restrictions.
So I want to make explicit in the law that those types of protests with cumulative disruption for communities can attract the same conditions and restrictions that apply to other types of protests, so that the police have absolute clarity that they can use cumulative disruption as a reason for restricting those protests.
This comes after 500 arrests were made in London on Saturday at a protest supporting the proscribed group Palestine Action, organised by a group called Defend Our Juries. The protest went ahead despite pleas from ministers and police who called for it to be postponed following Thursday's deadly synagogue attack in Manchester. So let's have a look at these new powers. And it's very, very simple, this really, because they're just looking at a particular facet of protest. Here's an AI image of protesters in central London for you. Currently, for police to ban a march entirely, there needs to be a risk of serious public disorder. And this is what they're looking at. Under the new rules, where there have been repeated protests, they could impose conditions. So the Home Secretary says the right of protest is fundamental, but the freedom must be balanced. Large, repeated protests could leave people feeling fearful. So it's that word, isn't it? It's the word repeated. That's what she's focusing on. Now, if we look at the protest at the weekend, on the face of it, there's no reason whatsoever to ban what we saw. Because, OK, leave aside the connection with Palestine Action, but these are generally rather peaceful people with a sign saying, I oppose genocide. A lot of them, by the way, were spectacularly old. This guy was too old to even be arrested, really. He was unable to stand up, so they had to carry him away, as with the following person there as well, seemed not to be able to, and she was lying down. So you might say, on the face of it, what's wrong with a protest like this? It's not going to do any harm. But the issue is about the fact that it's again and again and again, and it's the same people every time, and it's communities, in this case the Jewish community, say, well, we don't like this. Reuters describe it like this: new powers for the police to restrict repeat protests, to consider the cumulative impact. That's the word, isn't it, that goes to the heart of this. So if you're a protest group, you may well not now be able to take out the calendar and say, we'll do Friday, then we'll be in Trafalgar Square on the following Saturday, next Monday we'll be in Piccadilly, then we're going to go to Manchester, then we're going to Glasgow and Edinburgh and Cumbria and Carlisle, and then the following Friday. You can't just pepper the diary. What do you think, Saira?
There's quite a lot to say on this, and I want to really get it right. But my initial reaction is that these kind of measures kind of come into place when there's been a high-profile incident. And I just feel that that should not drive policy, long-term policy, unless you see systematic failure.
So you're talking here about Manchester being the spur. The synagogue attack makes ministers say, we've got to do something.
I feel in this case, because she's come out now to say it, because if that is the case of fear, in the past year, 17 attacks on mosques and Islamic institutions between June and September 2025. In fact, at the weekend, there was another attack, which has got tiny little back page kind of mentions. We've had 4,971 anti-Muslim incidents between October 2023 and September 2024. These incidents happen all the time. And I feel that her coming out now after this horrendous attack on the Jewish community it has to be said it's horrendous. It absolutely has to be, the family and everything, my wishes go out to them. But I think we have to be very careful at singling out just a certain group of people and ignoring everybody else. I think that's dangerous. I think the police have enough powers to do their job, and I think banning protests and limiting public expression, this country is built on demonstrations.
Okay, James.
I think we need to look at this slightly differently, because I think what we're dealing with is a government that realises that maybe they've acted incorrectly over the last few years. the Jewish community has raised the alarm about this particular range of protests, which have been taking place on a regular basis, with exactly the same, and you say the cumulative effect. The cumulative effect is that for many Jewish people, those areas of their city, wherever those protests are taking place, have become a no-go zone because, and it's not about the rules which are in place about protests, it's actually about what people are doing, which is already breaking the law. There are huge elements of anti-Semitism with it. Are there people there who genuinely want to see an end to death of Palestinians or the plight of the Palestinian people? Absolutely.
The two can't be connected.
But they have been.
But they shouldn't be, and I think this is the problem.
But
what happened in Manchester was a isolated incident, and the protests against Palestine is a separate issue.
The reason that you can connect them.
I think to talk about the two together is very dangerous and not right, because there are many Jewish people who go on these.
There are some. Sure.
There's a lot, James.
There's some. But let me just say. The point is that if you have
policy in Israel, not against Jewish people.
No, that's not the point. The point is that we've seen a 400% rise in anti-Semitic attacks. The point is that when you have these marches and these protests, it gives the environment in which people become emboldened. And I don't mind whether you're trying to stop attacks on places of Muslim faith, mosques, or indeed on synagogues or anywhere else. It is not right that in this country, people of faith are having to have extra security because the environment is created.
But you haven't mentioned Gaza here, because Gaza is what's driving these protests.
Gaza is partly driving these protests.
It's not partly, James. It's the majority of reason why people are going out to protest against a genocide that is happening in Israel. That is what they're protesting against.
Well, it's not happening in Israel.
And that is what and we have a duty, and we have had a history in this country against marching against foreign policy, i.e. the Iraq war. People came out in their millions.
Let's let James answer.
Let's be very clear. First of all, you are technically incorrect. The genocide that you refer to, first of all, is it a genocide?
It's recognised by the UN as a genocide.
And that is problematic in itself in terms of the UN. And
Leave that to one side.
Leave it to one side. The other issue is that the things which are being protested at these marches talk about from the river to the sea. What that means is that the state of Israel should not exist. And when you talk about intifada, which is also being called for...
But not everybody is saying that.
Intifada.
But when reason why people are marching.
Yes, but some of the people are marching there. So it makes the majority of the Jewish population feel very uncomfortable.
James, I have got many Jewish friends, and they are actually not fearful of what is going on.
Some aren't.
And also, there are many Jewish people. There are Jewish people in Israel that are marching against their own government, and that is what this conversation should be about.
I don't have a problem about that discussion but the problem that we've got is that people have conflated these issues. They have brought them together, and as a result of not only these marches and these and what's been going on, is that has made the environment very, very difficult for many Jewish people.
We should correct that. I agree. We should correct that.
All right. Craig in Northamptonshire, hi.
Hi, hello.
Are the government right, Craig, to say, right, we're going to look at stopping protests that are simply weekly?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the ones you're talking about obviously are the Palestinian protests. I mean, the slaughter in Gaza, does that stop on a regular basis, maybe? No, it doesn't. It just carries on, and hence the marches. And also, I mean, on those marches, it has been mentioned, there's thousands of Jewish people who attend these marches. They obviously don't feel threatened. Reading what the comments.
Well, I was reading something from my colleague Vanessa Feltz the other day, who said she walked past one of these marches and there was something like abuse shouted at her, and that was very upsetting for her. So.
Craig, can I ask you the question that was asked by Matthew Syed at that march, where he asked one of the protesters, he said, how much accountability do you hold to Hamas for what has been unfolding for the Palestinian people, the awful atrocities and terrible things which have been taking place there? Do you account any accountability to Hamas for what's taken place?
Go on, Craig.
I see. Hello. Yeah, I'm just sort of. Are we really straight back to do you support Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? It's not about Hamas. It's about the protests and the slaughter in Gaza.
No, but it is about Hamas.
It started with that.
Because if you don't have the understanding as to why that war is taking place, so Hamas does not believe that Israel as a state should exist.
It's not a war.
Guys, we're going to take a break. We're going to take a break there. Thank you, Craig. After the break, we're taking more of your calls on whether police should be given more powers to tackle protests. Does the idea scare you? Would you welcome stricter rules so you can't do a weekly march? 020, I couldn't keep you apart during the break there because I can tell this goes to the heart of who you are.
Yeah, it goes to the heart of who I am because, I have been brought up with this issue ever since I was born. I'm 55 years old.
So
and we've
have I.
always talked about Israel and Palestine, and so this is in the heart of many, many people. And I think, let me be very clear on my position. I want Hamas to release all of the prisoners. I recognise a two-state country in that region. However, what has happened after October the 7th has been from the Israeli government, and this is why people are protesting, James. They are protesting at the innocent killing of civilians, of hospitals being burnt down, of educational establishments completely destroyed, about people being bombed alive, of journalists not being allowed to go and report. This is all things that people are protesting about, including many Jewish people here and in Israel.
That's partly what people are protesting about. But you see,
no, it's not partly. It is.
No, it is partly. Because whilst all of those things that you raise are really important and nobody wants to see the loss of innocent life, what we're also talking about is you talked about the two-state solution as if there are people who are happy with that. And part of the issue that we have to understand here is that there are many people in that region, that here we are happy in where we are, that first of all, as a Jewish person, I'm being asked to comment on what the Israeli government is doing. And
well, you could say you disagree. I don't know whether you might just suddenly say you agree with her.
No, I don't agree with everything that Saira said, but I do.
So you don't agree with the fact that most people in this country have taken to the streets literally once a month because of what Israel has done since October the 7th to the majority of innocent people. If there was a Hamas...
Let's let James answer.
If there is a Hamas person here, you don't bomb the whole of London to get that one person out.
This is the problem when we're dealing with Hamas, and I think it's partly the way it's been portrayed in the media, that first of all, Hamas is a terrorist organisation.
Agreed.
And it has not been necessarily reported in that way. Secondly, we haven't talked about where it's funded, why it's funded, and also what they've been doing, not only in the build-up to the 7th.
You're not answering the question. You're not answering. You take this back
James,
to Hamas and
what she's saying is this is the equivalent in the Northern Ireland conflict of trying to kill the IRA by air bombing the whole of Belfast.
I do not agree with a situation in which innocent people are killed and in any way, caught up in a horrendous battle which has been raging for 2 years. The loss of any civilian life, to me, is devastating, OK? However, the policy of the Israeli government is that they are seeking to remove Hamas off the face of the earth because that is their policy. I am not here to defend that policy. I can only wring my hands, and I think every Jewish person will wring their hands at the plight of the individual.
But you think the policy, the way you phrased it suggests you think that the way they're dealing with that may be justifiable.
I think that
you didn't say it's terrible.
And that, I'm sorry, I have an issue with that, James, because it is not justifiable. And that is why so many people who have got absolutely no connection with Palestine or Israel are coming out on human rights matters and the way that war is conducted.
I do want to go to calls, but let me just let James respond.
Let me just have it. Yes, let me just have a response.
Just quickly.
Do you think that Hamas should be?
Well, hang on. No, you could.
Well, I'm not talking about Hamas.
You have to. Because if you have people who are determined to continue
the Israeli government and Hamas are together. I am talking about the right of people in this country to affect foreign policy, and they have the right to demonstrate against the innocent killing of civilians,
they do not have the right
to do. A genocide.
Okay. What they do not have the right to do is to continue with their marches, which have anti-Semitic elements, which are making the Jews. They do.
They don't.
So are you telling me that?
No,
James, answer another question.
Majority of people that are going on
Pause now.
Anti-Semitic.
Pause only because callers are queuing up and they really want to talk about it. Stephen in London. I was going to say whose side are you on, but let's not divide it too much. What do you think?
Right, so I was at the protest on Saturday, yes. I went there as a witness. I've been on previous protests where I actually sat down and I held a sign. I'm going to admit that publicly. I don't care if that gets me police knocking on my door, they can knock on my door, whatever. So on Saturday, I was there to witness the event, and the event was totally peaceful. And what I saw was the police arresting pensioners, people in wheelchairs, and disabled people.
But I'm not. Can you help
And
me?
it was absolutely
Genuine question, Stephen. Because I showed the graphic. You could see that a lot of people arrested were old people. There was a blind guy. There was a wheelchair guy, etc.
Yeah.
Person in a wheelchair. Were they arrested because they were carrying signs saying Palestine Action? That's what I don't understand.
That's literally all they were arrested for. They were sat down, they were sat there peacefully, they weren't doing anything, and they were all arrested for holding a piece of cardboard which, said, I oppose the government, I support Palestine Action.
Okay, well,
now, there were
that
people
is
there
an
with
offence.
Union
All right.
Jacks walking through that crowd to agitate people.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Frank in Oxford, hi.
Hi, good morning, Jeremy.
What do you think, Frank?
Well, I think, unfortunately, thank you for taking my call in the first place, but I don't think I can now continue with my discussion because your programme has been overtaken by Palestine demonstration.
In what sense? Because Saira is speaking from the heart here.
My idea was you wanted to discuss police powers at demonstrations. It's gone out of all context of that. You're not talking any of that.
You think you don't have to take part, Frank, it's fine. But you think the police shouldn't be I don't know what you think. You think the police shouldn't be stopping these protests, or they should?
Well, I think the police have already got the powers to disturb on these protests. They've got the power of disorderly behaviour, causing harassment, drunken disorderly, criminal damage. What they're doing at the moment is they're arresting people, taking them to court. The court then will say, oh, OK, we'll give you a suspended sentence. The way I would do, me personally, I would give each one a fixed penalty. A fixed penalty. They then have the choice to pay that penalty or go to court and fight their case. They will then have to pay for a solicitor and everything else that goes with it. But they won't do that because that young lady on the panel started off very well with my thoughts. They are drunken, they're louts, they have not got an idea what they're doing.
But Frank,
Really?
A lot of
She didn't say that.
I didn't say that. But Frank, can I just say...
Hang on, Frank. Hang on.
Frank, I just want to put it to you. I agree that we've started to talk about the Palestinian, the pro-Palestinian marches, but it is. They are the largest marches in this country right now. So you can't talk about giving police powers, the extra powers, without talking about these marches and what they stand for, because a lot of them are very peaceful. So why should the police be given more powers?
I'm not saying they...
No, I don't think he was. I think Frank is actually weirdly on your side. Thank you, Frank. Gina in London, hi.
Morning. There's so much going on about this, because when we had 150,000 British people marching with British flags, the government didn't do nothing about it. He came out and changed the law, because people are desperate about immigration. Now you have the Palestinians, marching against the terrorism that's going on in Israel. I call it terrorism because you're killing people, you're killing children. When that's going on, he's changing the law. And this government is very biased, very prejudiced, because his wife's Jewish. So everything... I
don't think that's fair to say that.
This is not about Jewish. This is about Israel. This is not about Jewish people. This is about the Israel government.
Go on, James.
Bombing people.
Let James speak, Gina.
Gina, but the thing is that it is because when you have the incident that took place on Thursday, the environment in which that can happen is facilitated by the protests that continue and some elements of those marches, not all, some elements of those marches in which anti-Semitism is rife. And unless or until that is tackled, then that is going to be problematic for the 287,000 or so Jewish people in this country. And it makes them feel extremely uncomfortable. And this is not about having one march. This is about the words are cumulative. Now, is the government taking the right stance? I'm not sure. OK. Gina, thank you. Thanks to all our callers on this important topic. Later, we'll be asking if it's right to shut half of post offices. That's a proposition by Labour because they are no longer profitable. After the break.